Hey there, hi there, ho there, Waffle fam. Welcome to a very special episode number 9 of the Waffle Press. Boom. Now, why is this episode so special? You are getting introduced to your new co-host of the Waffle Press, and I don't know why I'm doing it like a Canadian, but here you go. So, she is fantastic. I have been talking with her for the last pretty much month about dice camera action, all things fantasy, and multiple projects. And we're going to start off, we're going to play 20 questions with her today. We're also going to talk some dice camera action stuff. So the first question we're going to ask her is, what do you want our viewers to call you?
Jessie is fine. For the majority, like 99.9% of people, I go by Jessie. The only amendment I will make to that is please spell it I-E, not with a Y. That's all I ask.
Jessie I-E with a Y. Very good. Okay. And we're not supposed to use her first
just
name.
Jessie I-E, no Y.
There you go. Jessie I-E, no Y. You keep your Y.
I don't know why that's a thing for me, but it is.
But it is, and that's okay. So we're going to play 20 questions with Jessie so that you get a chance to know her, how she feels about things, and then that'll also give you an idea of where we're going creatively, because Jessie and I have got plans. We have such plans. And of course, and our plans are probably bigger than we are right now, and that's okay. But that's all right. So we're gonna blitzkrieg her with some basic questions, and then we're gonna get into dice camera action questions, and then we'll probably talk about disintegrating dwarves. So we're gonna get into all of that.
Everything,
yes. And then we're gonna solve the mysteries of the universe. So if you want to know the meaning of life, stick,
and
stay
cure
on the stream.
cancer. So pay attention.
Yes, and cure the disease. Yeah, all of that. Okay, so Jessie, let's start with some basics. What's your favorite food?
Oh Lord. Like, I could break it down into categories, but I try to think of, like, the most severe thing possible. And we're talking food, not beverages, correct?
Food, not beverages.
Oh, probably something my mother makes because she's a fabulous cook. She's a wonderful cook, excellent baker. I think you and I have talked about this before off show. She's one of those cooks that can, like, hold flour in her hand and magically know that that's like a cup and a quarter of flour.
Oh, I have such respect for people like that because I could not even make macaroni and cheese. So
I did not get that gene. I can do some things well, but I'm the person that has to measure it 6 times and then check the book 4, and I'm still not totally sure about it.
Yeah, that's me. See, my mom didn't have that gene to pass on to me. When she got the microwave oven, when those first came out, it was a dark time in the history of our family. Sorry, I can't talk about that. Anyway.
If I have to pick one thing, and I do have a pretty big sweet tooth, she makes these like monster cookie bars. And they're like a chocolate chip cookie bar, but it's not just chocolate chips. Like there's toffee bits in them, and I think she puts nuts in them. And she even puts like healthy things in them, like chia seed and flaxseed.
Wow.
And they're fantastic.
That's amazing. My mom didn't put healthy anything.
She makes her own flour blends, for Pete's sake. I mean,
dang! Now I'm really impressed. I mean, I was impressed already. I'm impressed with anyone's mother who could cook because, well, anyway, trauma. We're not going to go there. Okay.
Yes. Well, that's episode 2.
That's episode 2. That's right. And for all those of you who are wondering, like, if my mom's going to watch this stream,
episode 10.
Yeah, episode 10. Yeah, my mom will never watch this stream. She barely knows about the dragons in the dungeons, so don't even worry about it. All right, next question, Jessie. What's your favorite kind of music? Your favorite genre?
Okay, so top genre is country. I love country music. It does not get enough love.
But which country do you love, Jessie? Do you love classic Kenny Rogers, Dolly Parton country, or Shania Twain, Garth Brooks rock and roll country?
Well, I grew up with a blending. Like, my grandpa, I can still tell you the exact time he showed it to me. My grandparents were living in an RV in Texas, and I remember sitting on his lap, and he's like, no. You got to learn some real country. Because we were like 80s, 90s, Reba, Tim McGraw.
Oh, I love Reba, yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, there's something wrong with you if you don't love Reba, yeah.
Right? At least a little. You don't have to like everything she does, but at least a little.
Yeah.
But he was like, no. Let me show you some real country. And he played Alison Krauss's When You Say Nothing at All.
Oh.
And I just melted.
Yeah.
And I also have a weird, like, affection for Canadian country.
Really?
There is a playlist on Spotify of Canadian country, and it's so good.
Okay, well, now I'm going to have to do that.
And my other two secondaries are definitely pop.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm super picky because I don't like half of what's
Yeah.
popular nowadays, and rock.
Yeah.
Because I
Well,
definitely had some rock in my childhood.
there's a
So
lot of garbage music out there right now. I think we can all agree.
yeah,
So,
it's just kind of all the same.
yeah.
Like I know everyone says that, but
Yeah.
and it seems like pop is going more like urban hip hop
Yes.
rap,
Yeah, very
and
much. I
that's
agree.
just not my deal. I also ridiculously love house and techno.
Cool.
So I have a very odd mixture
Yeah.
of
But that
genres.
makes sense because techno and anime, right? There's a relationship there.
Well, and
So,
it's so good to write to, especially if you have to write something
mm-hmm.
that's energetic and fast. Like,
Yeah.
don't, again, I love country music, but there's certain things that like you need a more upbeat tempo to write to,
Yeah,
and that's where the techno comes in.
I agree. Awesome. Okay, next question. Do you have a favorite childhood memory?
Oh Lord, I have a couple funny childhood stories. I remember like one of the happiest times I remember from when I was a little kid. And don't get me wrong, I had a solidly happy childhood.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like it was, a light and a bleak, youth of mine.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite things to do when I was a little kid was build mud pies.
Really?
Yeah, like when I was little, like under 10. But I can remember sitting in the yard, just like covered in dirt from head to toe, and just happy as a clam.
Mm,
Everybody was leaving me alone. I was making a mud pie. I had my imagination. Everything was great.
yeah. And honestly, that's all you need, right?
Yeah,
Imagination is kind of what we're all about.
little
So,
dirt, little imagination, you're good to go.
yeah, little dirt, little imagination. Now a few dice with the imagination. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you. Awesome. Well, cool. Okay, next, what's your favorite holiday?
This is actually super easy because I've known this one forever.
Okay.
My favorite holiday is Thanksgiving
Really?
because of all the good Christmas foods,
Uh-huh.
but none of the stress of buying presents.
Ah.
It's everything I love about Christmas with, like decorations, but we've been super, super heatheny and not been doing decorations until like the 23rd lately. But
And
it's
you
like
call that
it's
super
the
heatheny.
best.
I love that. Okay.
It's the best part of Christmas. It's being with your family.
Uh-huh.
It's seeing all the kids and having it be super crazy.
Yeah.
And all the foods I love at Christmas with no decoration stress.
Yeah.
Because who cares? It's Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
We all just
exactly.
want to eat and watch football. That's what it's for.
Yeah, exactly. Amen, sister. There you go.
And
That's
all the good food. Like
and all the good
it's the
food.
perfect holiday. I don't
Yeah.
have to dress up.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no
Well, we
stress.
don't do
It's
that
just
either. I mean, I know a lot of people who do they'll still like everybody dresses for dinner, but I feel like that's more 1850s, like not so much now.
we not for dinner. I'm like it depends too because sometimes a couple of us will dress up
Mhm.
and then someone will walk in like jeans and a t-shirt and we're like whatever.
Yeah, I got you.
And anymore with Christmas, it's pajamas.
Okay. That's awesome. Well, I love Thanksgiving too, but for me it's still got to be Christmas. I love
Yeah.
the lights and the pageantry, and I love the fact that my wife does all this decorating and I come home to like this winter wonderland scene. And more importantly, I love torturing my children. I buy presents like
Yeah.
the first week of December. I buy them in the middle of the year, and as soon as we get the tree, I put them under there to torture my children all December
Well, I
long.
mean that's your prerogative as a
Yeah.
dad.
Well, yeah. I mean that's where my joy comes from, right? That torture,
Tormenting your
the
children. Got
tormenting
it.
factor, yeah. And so, well, that's the best part of Christmas is anticipation, right? So,
Yeah.
at least for little kids, it is. Okay.
Yeah.
So
And
next
that's
question.
like as an adult, sorry, I'm gonna
No,
make
go
you
ahead.
jump back. As an adult, like presents are don't get me wrong, everybody loves presents.
Yeah, but it's
Anybody
different.
that says they just absolutely hate them 100% is lying.
Yeah.
But for me, because he's actually turned 2 today.
Mm,
I got my baby, and then I've got, oh Lord, this is going to be on video. I better not get this wrong.
ooh,
An 8-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 10-year-old,
mm-hmm.
and the 15-year-old. And seeing the kids get excited over Christmas, that's what makes it fun for me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. The joy of Christmas changes as you get older, and that's great.
Yeah,
Yeah. There's
it
nothing wrong with
becomes
that.
less about you and more about them.
Yeah. Okay, next question. When you do work, what do you work on? Or are you a student? What are you working on right now?
Well, I was a student
Mm-hmm.
briefly, And we know the torture that was. And it was one class, and it was math. And that's all we're going to say about it.
And we really don't need to talk anymore about math, do we? Unless you
No,
want to.
no, we're done.
Yeah.
Unless we are rolling dice, there should be no math in this conversation.
Yeah, no math in this conversation unless the dice are... Okay, duly noted, everybody. And if you're going to leave comments in the YouTube... I don't know. Maybe leave math out of the comments in the YouTube. I don't know. It's too soon.
Or offer me free tutoring. Either one.
Yeah, one of the two. Yeah, too soon. Too soon. Okay, that's interesting. All right, what's your dream job?
So what do I do for? What's my dream job?
Yeah, what do you do for work? What's your dream job?
What I do for work is because I have a disability. Eventually, you will see the wheelchair float in and out of frame. Not a big deal. So I do live on disability. And I do supplement with transcription work, which I really like.
Yeah.
Which segues into the next one, which, as weird as it may sound, I would love to do transcription full time.
That's awesome.
It's just there's something about it that I find fascinating because depending on how big of a job you take, like there's a lot of prison phone calls.
Yeah.
Which I avoid like the plague because they're just bonkers.
Yeah.
But it's some of the other ones, you have like a 30-minute to an hour-long video and you're learning about topics that you would never research for yourself. One of the first ones I did as a tester was talking about, how they do a bypass when you get a heart bypass and the technology that they use and how it's employed. And again, I'm never going to be a surgeon, but that's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that's way cool. So I bet a lot of people don't know about that. I'm one of those people that likes
picking up information.
Yeah, but tons of people don't realize what transcription is. So you'd be listening to a conversation and typing it out then? Or how does that work?
Yeah, what you do is you have a file, and it's actually the company I work for. It's set up really nicely. You have an audio file that you listen to, and then on your keyboard, as you're typing, you can stop and start the video to be at pace with your typing. And then depending on the file, some people like what's called verbatim, where you type everything. Every every
Huh.
I tend to avoid those because I don't hate myself.
Gotcha.
And I'm a very baby transcriptionist at this point. But then other people, it's like you do light editing to make sure that it's clearly understood, easy to follow and to read back. And it's if you get an interesting topic, like one of them I did was this company in Australia that makes climbing gear and how their business started and some of the things they went through and how they've prospered today. And that was awesome. I could have listened to them all day. Anytime you get an accent that you like, it's a good day.
Yeah, that's way awesome and very interesting. And that's actually something that my wife looked into at one point and did a little work for. Not a ton, but did a little work for. So that's used by a lot of companies who need to see the exact language that was used. Lawyers use transcriptionists. Doctors use them.
If she ever decides she wants a little work on the side, I finally found a good website because it is not easy to find a good website that either doesn't charge you an arm and a leg or is really hard to get into. If she decides she wants it for a little extra pocket change, I can definitely show her to a good website that I would recommend.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. Yeah, and I may take you up on that sooner than you think.
Yes.
So
that's all right. Awesome. That's all right.
Okay, now Jessie, here comes the big question. Are you ready for the big question?
Yes.
Okay, here comes the beast, and Jessie and I may talk about this question for a little bit. Do you consider yourself more conservative or more progressive, and why?
I consider myself primarily conservative. There are progressive or more classically liberal attitudes and beliefs that line up really well with conservatives. If I had to nutshell it, it's basically don't get in my business. Do pretty much whatever you want as long as everyone is legal and aware of what's going on. And don't make me pay for it.
And don't make me pay for it, yeah. Which I can.
And I'm not, because you and I have talked about like welfare and Medicare. I'm on Medicare myself.
Yeah.
Because with a pre-existing condition, I will never qualify for any kind of insurance. So it's like I'm not anti-Medicare.
Yeah.
I'm anti-don't abuse the system. And besides that, pretty much just leave me alone and I'm a happy girl.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to bother you. I don't want you to bother me.
Yeah. See, Jesse and I had a long conversation about this before we decided that we were going to talk about this a little bit. And it's one of the reasons why we clicked so quickly is that we both hold some pretty staunch conservative views, which isn't to say that they're all conservative. I think anybody who leans too far one way or too far the other way on the political spectrum tends toward to being what we call a radical and is generally unhinged at some point.
It gets real close to extremism, and I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah, I agree. So one of the reasons why Jesse and I kind of wanted to start this show up together is because we felt very strongly that in the D&D community in particular, there was a conservative voice missing. And I don't want to speak for you, Jesse, so do you find that same thing to be true?
No, I definitely agree. And I don't know. You tell me if I'm speaking out of turn. We can always edit this later.
Yeah.
It feels like for a company that is very much pro diversity, one of the areas where it's missing diversity is political ideology.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying let all the extremists in the door, because that's not right either.
Yeah.
It just feels like there is one mindset that is the accepted mindset. And if you don't fit into that particular window of thought, it's one of those where no one ever has expressly said, if you are conservative, you don't belong in D&D.
Yeah.
But there are certain actions taken by some of the people higher up the chain, let's say, that definitely, if you're a conservative, it makes you squirm in your seat.
Yeah. Yeah,
because
I would
it
agree.
makes you feel like you're not welcome at the table.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a big problem because one of the things that I am passionate about is that D&D is for everybody. I feel like if kids were introduced to it so much younger, it would do so many children so much good, and adults. I mean,
For socialization, for math, for strategy.
Yeah.
There's so many ways in the academic and, social world that you can apply D&D.
Yeah, for building a sense of community too. And so and I've experienced the same thing that Jesse has. If you are a conservative or you lean more conservative, you do end up squirming. And I had one of those situations recently, which is one of the reasons why it's taken me so long to do the next Waffle Press, because I was really kind of contemplating and trying to make a decision about whether or not I felt like there was a place in the community for me. And I kind of came to the conclusion after I met Jessie that, you know what, there are probably a lot of conservative and maybe religious people who play D&D who feel like they can't have a place at the table. And one of the things that happened that made me feel that way was I was interacting with the DM of Hell's Bells, Mazmataz, on Twitter. And on Twitter, she had said that she disabled the YouTube comments on the YouTube video because they introduced their pronouns at the beginning of the stream, and they got a lot of nasty, vicious, and rude comments from people who were irritated that they were having ideology forced on them before the stream started. And what I did was, and I'm not justifying those horrid people and the vicious comments. You can have a back and forth discourse and disagree in a polite way. I don't think many people know how to do that anymore, unfortunately.
Especially not on social media.
Yeah.
Social media, I won't go on like a secondary diatribe, but social media in a lot of ways has deteriorated our ability to communicate as individuals.
Oh, I agree with you 100% on, and I think most psychologists would agree with you also on that. So that being the case, I just tried to explain to Maz, the DM of Hell's Bells, how conservatives look at that. When you tell me that I have to look at someone who I consider to be a female, who is obviously a female, who if you asked my son, who is 5 years old, is this a man or a woman? He would say, well, it's a woman, Daddy. That I have to call her a man or a they. Now, if someone asked me to use their pronouns, I would. I would because I consider myself to be a kind person, and I would want to show them respect. But there's a difference between somebody telling me or asking me, would you please respect me this way, and telling me you have to use this, and if not, you're a bad person.
The guilt tripping.
Yeah.
And I come at it from a slightly different angle of, I don't care what your pronouns are. Mm-hmm. My question is, because I'm there for your character, right?
Yeah.
So does this different pronoun usage apply to your character, or is it just your own thing?
Yeah.
And if it's, like I said, if it's your own thing, I don't care.
Yeah.
If it somehow affects your character or your character's backstory, fine, I can understand it. And I've not seen the episode. I don't watch that particular show.
Yeah.
So I don't know, what kind of kerfuffle or who said what or anything like that.
Yeah.
My thing is if it doesn't affect your character or affect the gameplay at the moment, why start with that?
Yeah.
We're here to be immersed in a fantasy world. I don't understand the logic of putting that politicalness, for lack of a better word. That's a terrible word.
Yeah. That's okay. I use it all the time. Your ness.
Politicalness. Front and center of your show.
Yeah.
Especially when it has very little application to the game or the show itself.
Well, more than that, I felt like it gets confusing when I have a DM who says they're they and they're playing a character who's a he and I think she's a she based on it's
right.
it's very confusing. And there were they're like
harder to follow.
Yeah, there are like 8 of them at the table too. And the thing that killed me is I was like, wait, you call yourselves the Bells. A belle is a term for a demure Southern female woman, usually, right?
I was gonna say the same, a Southern belle.
I'm like, if you're not all women, why are you calling yourselves Bells? It's so anyway, it was confusing. Now
unless there's like a plotty thing going on, I don't know.
Yeah, well, and it was irritating. But I'll tell you what irritated me. It wasn't that she disagreed with me. That's okay. I'm not threatened by that. I'm also not threatened by people who tell me I'm wrong. That's fine. Like, tell me why, right? What bothered me is she blocked me instantly, and she took a caption of my response to her and said that not engaging with me was an act of survival. And I was like, okay. Then somebody else, Chloe, I think, blocked me. And at TwittySuch, who is Hadil on Trapped in the Birdcage, blocked me also. And I thought to myself, wow, I don't know if I have a place at the table here. Maybe D&D, the D&D community is not for me. So I stopped doing the Waffle Press for a while. And to be honest with you, now my attitude, partially because of Jessie, so thank you, Jessie, but
you're welcome, I think.
My attitude
depending on what you say, Lex, that you're welcome.
Yes. Well, no, my attitude has changed. I feel like I have to build my place in the community. D&D is for everybody, and it's for conservatives too, and it's for religious people too, and I'm both of those things. And I don't think it's appropriate when you were disagreed with to just shut people out of the conversation. But anyway, that being said, we're back.
It's one of those things where, there's so many good things about the internet, right? Because I've been on the internet since the late 90s, probably like 97, 98, doing things I shouldn't have been. Nothing too terrible, but 13-year-old things.
Yeah.
I don't know. I remember having discussions with people, like long discussions, and breaking things apart and figuring out why we thought the way that we did. And that's one of my favorite things, is figuring out why people do what they do.
Yeah.
And I feel like as the internet has become more me, with like Instagram and Twitter, and every thought that I think should be put out for the masses.
Yeah.
One of the things, and don't get me wrong, I'm just as guilty as anybody else, but one of the things I try to remind myself is not every thought you think, not every meal you eat needs to go on the internet.
Yeah.
But I think that it's become so insular. And instead of engaging, and I mean, there are trolls and people that are just butt faces that don't deserve the time and energy to try and negotiate with, and you have to figure out who those people are for yourself. But it's become, instead of, hey, this great thing brings us together and it stretches across oceans. Now it's like my own little insular bubble and my own little perfect fan club where I never have to deal with criticism.
Yeah.
And I specifically try, like, I'm not a saint, I'm not holding a flag.
Yeah.
I specifically try to the maximum that I can stand to go out of my way to either talk to, follow, or watch people that I disagree with.
Oh yeah, I agree with you 100%. Like everybody thinks that just because I'm conservative, that all I do is I put this altar in front of my TV, and when Fox News comes on, I light a candle. No, okay.
Right?
I watch Rachel
You're
Maddow.
constantly standing behind a flag going, America, right?
Yeah, America, while I break my teeth and whatever. But no, I watch Rachel Maddow. I watch CNN. I watch Anderson Cooper. I mean, and Chris Cuomo. I like to dip my feet into both sides of the discussion.
And I think you have to
Yeah.
be a well-rounded person, to, like, when you're arguing, know what their perspective is, know where they're coming from, so that you may never agree 100 to 100%.
Yeah.
But you can find some common ground. I don't know. I went to school in like the early 2000s. My first 2 years of high school were homeschooled.
Yeah.
And one of the best things my English teacher gave me, I sincerely thought she hated every one of us. But I feel like in high school, more so than college, we were taught critical thinking.
Yeah.
It wasn't just follow all the stuff that you like. Like, especially for me, when I was younger, I was a pretty hardcore Christian. Not like a let's go preach in the streets. I'm a very, I tend to be sneaky in the way that I'm really polite and I'm really sweet. And then I'll just like stick stuff under the door, like be like subtle about it.
Yeah.
But there was a couple things that I was really, really challenged on in high school. And you can't necessarily back down from every challenge.
Yeah.
Some of it you have to take on the chin and you have to deal with, because it makes you a stronger person.
Yeah. Well, and I think
Having
that's
to
the essence of Christianity. The essence of Christianity is saying, I don't agree with you, but I love you anyway. Or I'm trying to. I'm trying.
And not only that, but I'm trying to understand your perspective.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm
I agree
trying
with you.
to see where you're coming from so that we can find more common ground.
Yeah. Well, and the fact of the matter is, Jessie and I are actually considering, we're not even considering, we're in the initial planning stages of starting a D&D stream of our own for religious and conservative people. It's a D&D stream for everybody.
Shameless plug.
But yeah, shameless plug. We even have a name. We're not ready to reveal the name yet. We're excited about it, but we have a name, and we're building our cast, and we're figuring out the technological parts of it. So we'll be making that announcement at some point on the Waffle Press as we come. But anyway, I think we've probably talked about that.
No.
Go ahead.
Since you brought it up so subtly,
okay.
I really think you have to tell people how you got into D&D, because of the satanic panic in like the 80s and 90s. Everyone thinks that anyone of faith is against D&D. And there's definitely, if you like, I'm not a religious person in the same way that you are, okay? Yeah. That's part of the great things about our spectrum. Like, D&D scared me purely from a math point of view. Yeah. Math is not my strong suit. Yeah. I'm basically math dyslexic. So when someone said this is a game with math,
you're like,
I'm going to go read a book. I'll see you guys later.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, get me a cross and some holy water.
Yeah.
But I think that your story of how you started D&D is so fascinating and so not the expected story to hear of someone of faith. I really think if you're comfortable, you should put it out there.
Yeah. Well, I started when I was younger, but it's Ryan's story that really should get out there, because he's the one who... he's the one who I started playing with as an LDS missionary on my preparation days. So anyway, that is a story.
I find that so wild. I love it. We have to do an interview about that, because if you would have told me there's two guys who are missionaries who are deeply faithful men who, by the way, also love D&D.
Yeah.
I would have been like, you're joking.
Yeah, really. I mean, honestly, and it was funny. And, for those who maybe LDS who watch this, Ryan and I got out there and worked our butts off. But on P-Day, we let ourselves have a little time to relax and play D&D. And I think there was one time when we played a little bit too longer on lunch, and we both felt so guilty. We ran out and we swore we were never going to do it again. We were going to have a short lunch and get out there and work. Anyway, so Jessie and I are going to have announcements about that coming up here in the future. We'll probably introduce the cast to you. We'll introduce our characters, which we've already been working on.
Yes, you helped me build my character, who I'm still waffling between two names.
Yeah, which is okay.
I'm so excited.
She could have three names. It could be a middle name. I'm just saying. Like, we don't
Well,
have to.
she could take after Evelyn. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna. That may happen. Not gonna lie.
Okay, I think four names is a bit much. But I know that Anna is attached to every single piece of that Avalona Helvig Marthane
But like,
business.
tell me that doesn't roll off the tongue pretty darn well.
Yeah,
Considering
Evelyn
all
Avalona
the
Helvig
syllables
Marthane.
that are in there,
Yeah.
it's pretty good.
Maybe we should have a contest to see who can say that the most times without stopping. Like, even Avalona Helvig Marthane. Like, anyway, something like that. Maybe we should have that contest out with the whole community. I don't know. It would be
That would be hilarious.
Yeah, it would be a good idea. Okay, so all right, let's move on. We'll talk more about that as we come and as we make the announcements. Jesse and I are really excited about it. Okay, so Jesse, what's something that most people don't know about you?
Most people don't know a lot. I'm an INFJ, and if you're a pop psychology nerd, as I am, you'll know what that means. If not, Google it or just ignore it.
Mm-hmm.
What is something people don't know? I'm going, everybody knows my fears.
Yeah.
It's spiders, needles, and heights. Those are easy. I may have to come back to that one because that's a toughie for me.
Well, here's a good question. Does everybody know you play D&D? I mean, do you wear your nerd flag? Do you wear your nerd flag proudly? Yeah.
I can't not wear my nerd flag, so...
That's awesome.
Most people know D&D. My mom, because my mom was a little bit, I think, of the satanic panic, and she doesn't quite understand it.
Gotcha.
And she has a weird relationship with magic, which we may have to break down at some point, because some Disney magic is okay, and some other magic is... And I'm just like, I'm confused.
Like Mom? Yeah.
Mixed messages. I'm confused.
Okay.
Most people, I think, know that I play D&D. The better question is, do most people that know that I play D&D know what D&D is?
That is a good question. And thank you, Joe
And
Manganiello.
the answer would be no.
Yeah. So that's getting better. I mean, it's much better than it used to be, but that's a work in progress, I feel like, for our whole community.
The two people that are like my gaming buddies, I have a sister who's 18, and she actually has her own group, and she's been doing it for a couple of weeks, and she's super excited.
That's awesome.
And eventually this will loop into a later question, so we'll hold it.
Okay.
But my nephew is also the eldest nephew. We talk D&D all the time.
That's awesome.
And they're like my nerd buddies.
Yeah. Well, and I'll say this too. Every kid that I have introduced D&D to has been captivated by it. Every
it's
single
fantastic,
one.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, every single one. All right, Jesse, what's your favorite movie?
Oh Lord, this is hard.
It is hard.
Actually, because I know favorite book is on here later.
It is.
That's like super easy.
Okay.
Favorite movie is like, are we breaking it down by category? Is this, you were on an island and this is the only movie you will ever watch and you will die with this movie? Like,
yeah. Well,
what's my parameters here?
Yeah, well, you could just say, what's a movie that you love that you've watched over and over and over again that you maybe even if you've gotten tired of it.
The first one that immediately comes to mind is the 1991 animated Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
That will always be in my top 3 without question.
Yeah, I killed that VHS. I admit it. I murdered it. I wore that bad boy
Give me all the extras. Show me them singing.
Yeah.
Show me the drawing stuff. Like, I want all of that. Yeah. I want the 17 different commentaries. And
yeah, I hear you.
Yes.
Well, awesome. Mine is Clue, with Tim Curry.
I love that movie so much. It is so good.
Yeah, it is
Not enough people have seen that movie. It's so good.
It's like, that is the first movie that made me laugh so hard I was crying. That's
gotta be in my top 10 somewhere. Yeah. Don't actually make me make a list of top 10s because there's way too many movies, but that's gotta be in there somewhere.
Well, we can always bring it up later when we talk about that. So
yes.
Okay, let's jump out. Who's your favorite actor or actress then?
Actor or actress is easy. Audrey Hepburn.
Audrey Hepburn. Why?
She's a classic beauty. Mm-hmm. She had a brilliant soul. She had a heart for those in need.
Yeah.
And she was supremely talented.
Yeah.
And she went through a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you know anything about her backstory, but man, that girl was a survivor.
Yeah. And she lived. Yeah.
I shouldn't say lady. She's older than I am.
Yeah. Well, she definitely lived. And I don't think a lot of people are aware that, like, she could have kept acting. She stopped. She was too busy doing charity work, like, in Africa.
And she loved it. Yeah. She loved every minute of it. Yeah. Do you know the story of, if I'm remembering correctly, when she was growing up and they ate literally paper and tulip bulbs?
I
to
remember
survive.
reading that in a biography about her when
Yeah.
I was sharing. I was a
She
teacher and I talked about that, but like,
she went through a lot. She's like, I don't try to have a whole lot of heroes in the entertainment industry,
hmm
but if there was someone that I would love to just chat, sit down and chat with and be like, tell me everything. Tell
yeah,
me your life story. Tell me whatever you want to tell me, and I will listen to you for hours.
hmm
She's one of them, without a
yeah,
doubt.
yeah, yeah. She's an incredible human being. And we could do a whole stream about Audrey Hepburn. In fact, we could
I
do a whole
know,
stream,
right?
but yeah, about our heroes, and maybe at some point we'll do that.
That would be
Um,
cool.
okay, so next question: favorite cartoon shows and why?
This is so weird. Like I'm going, I don't actually watch that many
No,
cartoons.
but there are some that you have love for, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, like well, I have a house full of kids typically,
hmm
so we're big Octonaut fans.
hmm
Don't know if you're familiar with that one,
I
but
have
we're
no
big
idea.
Octonaut fans. Oh my God, it's the cutest thing. It's like six animals that they live in the ocean and they rescue other animals, but not only that, like it's kind of like science
Uh huh.
and humor and adventure all smushed together. So you learn about the animal of the day that they're rescuing,
hmm
like their habitats and what they like to eat. It's super fun and cute. Um,
What about when you were growing up?
that's where I'm going to. I'm like, what did I watch? Oh, Jetsons. I can't believe I forgot the
You loved the
Jetsons.
Jetsons?
Oh, yeah. Jetsons, Gummy Bears, Smurfs,
Yeah,
like all the more classic stuff. I mean,
yeah,
what is classic, right? For me,
yeah.
it's classic, but definitely the Jetsons. God, my dad loved Fraggle Rock, so I was definitely partial to that one. I remember loving the Paddington cartoons as a kid.
Did you ever run across the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon?
I've seen little bits here and there, but I don't recall like seeing it on TV. Anything that I've seen has been on the net.
Okay, this stream is over then. Sorry. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm sorry. We can no
No,
longer be
you
friends.
went there, Jesse. You
Unfollow.
went there. It's not.
Unfollow.
Yeah. No. I loved the more classic D&D ones like Thundercats, He-Man, She-Ra.
That's D&D?
It's so based in D&D, and it was written by people who played it. The writers of those
Really?
shows have talked about it. Yeah.
I had no idea.
Oh yeah, it's so those early cartoon fantasy shows, Black Star, He-Man, all of those,
Oh, wow.
and Conan the Adventurer, which is like that was done in the '90s.
Yeah.
Those shows were all written by D&D fans, and they've
Oh,
since
that's
talked
so
about it.
cool.
So
One of them that just popped into my head. I don't know if you'll remember it. It was kind of obscure, and I'm always super excited when people remember it. It had to have been one of like the first CGI shows, and it was called Reboot.
never heard of it.
And it was like set inside of a computer, if I'm remembering. And there was something about it that I just loved. And I remember like it would be on, and then I have to go to school, and it's like you're leaning over and like trying to catch the last couple seconds of it before you got to go out the door. But I remember loving that one.
Well, if you're watching the
Not that
Waffle
big
Press
deal.
and you've ever heard, well, I mean, you can't be watching it now because it's unwatchable on Twitch currently. We haven't figured out the tech part of it. You'll all be watching this later who watch it. Anyway, that being said, look up Reboot. I'll look it up too because I have no clue what she's talking about. I'm
And
sure
it
it's
explains so
awesome.
much because it started in 1994, and we're going, okay,
Yeah.
now I remember how roughly old I would have been. Okay, this explains so much.
So, what about favorite TV shows? Did you watch the hell out of Buffy?
No, I hated Buffy.
You hated Buffy?
I
Oh,
hated Buffy. I know everyone's gonna pile on me in the comments. I'm looking
yeah.
forward to.
Yeah, they're not going to watch us now. They're like, we can't watch the show. She's a Buffy hater.
We're done.
Yeah.
She's out.
We're not even going to get comments now. We're just going to get a bunch of steak emojis all the way down the end. Like, yeah.
New co-host.
Yeah.
New co-host.
That's okay. Well, what about...
I loathe Buffy. The only things that I liked about Buffy were I love the character of Giles,
Uh-huh.
and I kind of like Seth Green's character, and yeah, Oz and Giles. Those are the only two characters I gave a shit about. I thought, oh, sorry, I swore. I thought both Angel and Spike were obnoxious.
Uh-huh.
Like, why go after someone that gives a crap about you?
Mhm.
I didn't find either one of them compelling as leads. Now, I know that I hated this show for a specific reason. At that time, I had a very dear friend, probably my best friend, who was obsessed.
Oh, dear.
Like, scary obsessed. Like,
Uh-huh.
thinks she's going to marry David Boreanaz upset. Like,
Oh, boy.
I was like, I'm going to stay as far away from that as humanly possible.
Yeah.
And I am particularly not a fan of anything to do with vampires.
Ah.
It just very rarely sticks for me.
Mm.
I like tell me a story about werewolves or mummies, and I'm like, yay!
That's interesting.
Vampires,
See, I can't stay away. If I see something about vampires, even if watching it would be like, I don't know, I feel like would be damaging according to my own spirituality, sometimes I'll be like, ooh, maybe I'll just watch a YouTube clip. Ooh, maybe I'll just like, yeah, I love vampires.
And I'm about to enrage a whole bunch of nerds.
Yeah, that's okay.
To me, vampires are like the urban fantasy equivalent of elves.
Oh,
and I just
that's an interesting comparison.
If like dwarves that don't like elves, I'm like, yeah, I totally get it.
Yeah.
Why? But I totally get it.
Prissy little blood drinker. Yeah. I know.
There's just something, I just want to shake them.
Yeah. Okay, so speaking of shaking things, what's your favorite book? Do you have a favorite series?
Oh, that's easy. No, favorite book without question is Jane Eyre.
Jane Eyre. So and that's a classic for our friend, our geek friends out there who don't know it. Jane Eyre was written by whom?
Charlotte Bronte.
Charlotte Bronte. Yeah. And the only reason
read that first when I was 13, which everyone thought they're like, you know, that's a classic, right? I was like, yeah, it's good. It was so, because like I grew up on Babysitter's Club, which is lovely. Don't get me wrong. I think there needs to be more morals infused from Babysitter's Club into current society, but that's another question.
Yeah, and another stream.
But so it was a very, I won't say simple, because she dealt with a lot of complex themes, and I actually got to meet her as a teen, which was really cool.
That's awesome.
But there was just something so almost out of this world for me with Jane Eyre. It had so many things. Orphan child who isn't loved, spoilers, crazy wife in the attic, there was adventure, there was a will they won't they romance. It had so many things that I'd never really run into before that I was just completely transfixed by it. And I still have my first original copy that is like super loved because I've read it too many times.
Yeah.
So yeah, if I had to pick absolutely one book, it would be that one.
That's awesome. Well, okay, speaking of people trapped in the attic, who's your favorite superhero?
It's such a close tie, but it's Captain America or Tony Stark. Because in a lot of ways, I am Captain America. I'm always the one like, let's do the right thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen this skit from Chris Evans, where he's like, everyone can fly and has suits, and then there's me. I'll take the stairs. And I'm like, oh, I relate to that so hard. I relate to it so hard.
Oh.
So yeah, if I have to absolutely pick one, it's Captain. But if I have two, then it's definitely Tony Stark.
What do you like about Tony Stark? Is it the pimp style? Is that what you like?
No. Well, first of all, Robert Downey Jr. is gorgeous. So, I mean, there's that. But,
okay.
We'll just get that out of the way, right?
Yeah. Well, there's a reason I watched the Linda Carter Wonder Woman series, and it was not necessarily because she stood still. Let's put it that way.
Exactly. Yeah. She was a pretty lady. That's okay.
Yeah.
I love, and admittedly, I know more about the MCU than I do about the comics. I'm not well versed in comics.
Yeah, which is fine.
I love the arc that Tony has taken in his main movies. I'm so behind on the MCU, it's not even funny. So for his alone, and I know things from like the Infinity War, I know some of the things, to go from someone who is so profoundly me, selfish party boy, to someone that makes these great big sacrifices. That kind of journey is like one of my favorite literary journeys.
That's awesome. That's absolutely awesome.
I love seeing characters make those transformations.
Yeah, I think I've loved that too. I think that's one of the joys of having the extended universe is that we get to watch the characters. Some people have grown up with the characters,
Right?
And so
Isn't
we get to watch
crazy?
them change. Yeah, it's amazing. I absolutely love it. Okay, well go ahead.
To short answer, my love of Cap. Cap is doing the right thing even when it's hard.
Yeah.
And that's something that's very important to me, that level of integrity. And again, I haven't seen the new movie, so he could have just like lit a fire to all of this.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to say anything.
What I know, he's very big about doing the right thing, even when it's hard.
Yeah, even when it hurts, I would say.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Okay, moving on. We are now at almost 46 minutes here of the stream. Let's talk a little bit about.
If we squeezed all this in under an
Yeah.
hour, it was going to be a miracle.
Yeah, it'd be a miracle. Oh
Okay?
no, we're definitely not going to make it in under an hour, and that's okay because Captain America, right?
Exactly.
So, what I was going to ask next is, how did you become interested in dice camera action?
It's a weird story. I mean, everyone says it's a weird story. But if I'm remembering correctly, I found, we talking dice camera action or D&D?
Dice camera action, the show itself.
Dice camera action specifically was, I think it might have been an interview that Chris Perkins gave, at DM. And he just kind of mentioned offhand that he was in season 3, I think it was, of his weekly D&D game. And I love the AI Acquisitions Incorporated games.
Yeah.
Those were like my gateway drug into D&D. And I love them. It was like, oh, he has a weekly show? I have to check this out. And so that was definitely the triggering event that got me there.
Okay. Well, that brings us to when did you start playing D&D in the first place?
Bless you. I am a super duper D&D baby because I actually haven't played that much. I played with a former team in, like, it's only been a couple of months ago, and I played for about 6 sessions, and it didn't end up working out. So I've been following Penny Arcade for probably a good 10 years. And I've watched them play the AI games. I've heard them talk about D&D, and I've wanted to play and I've wanted to play. And I've like had the starter box for actual years.
Oh, wow.
And I just started playing this year. So I'm definitely a baby in that scenario.
Well, that's okay. You're gonna grow up. We're gonna grow up together. That's fine. That's
Yeah.
You're gonna get more than enough D&D if I have my way. So, okay. Well, then that kind of leads us into the question: why do you like D&D? Why do you think it's great?
Probably my favorite thing about D&D, because I'm a writer I wouldn't say hobbyist, but I do it a lot and I don't get paid for it.
Yeah.
Yet. I like playing D&D because it's like telling a story. So you're not just writing on a page. You're not mumbling into the void. You have all these other people at the table that are adding pieces. It almost feels like I'm not an impromptu theater person because being on stage, oh my God, no, please.
Yeah.
But it's almost like it almost has a theater aspect to it where you don't have a script. You don't necessarily know everything that's going to happen. And there's more than you playing the game.
Yeah.
And I find that variety and that sense of unknown really neat. And then having watched Dice Camera Action for a while and watched other games like Critical Role, seeing how you can take this completely imaginary scenario and build actual emotional bonds with people.
Yeah.
And like go through emotional arcs as these characters. I just think that's one of the neatest things I've ever seen.
See, I love that too, because I think honestly the best part of D&D is not the game. It's I love the game, but it's what happens with the people together at the table, right?
That's what makes it so electric.
Yeah. Well, I remember watching, Anna posted something to Twitter about Holly. She said, I wasn't born to sisters, but I'm lucky to have picked up a few along the way. And I'm
I love, because like you can watch their early episodes and everyone's like finding their footing. You can actually see their friendship solidify over time.
Yeah.
And I love it. It's so wonderful.
Yeah. Well, it is. It's heartwarming. And I think that is an example of why D&D is wonderful and why I think it belongs in the religious community too. I mean, not that love is only, an aspect of the religious community, but it's a place where friendships and love and community and family and bonds develop around the gaming table. And I would think that would be something that would be of huge interest to all people of faith.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
One of the other things that literally just popped into my head is in any era, not even just this one, because there's a lot of like, this is the worst era ever, but I'm not going to touch that.
Yeah. That's another stream.
In the real one, we're going to be like the Alton Brown
Yeah.
of of streams.
Yeah.
That's another stream.
That's another stream. Yeah.
But in the real world, you can't always go jump in the fray and save somebody.
Yeah.
You can't always go get the magical medicine that they need or solve the quest for them.
Yeah.
Because we're limited by what we can do in the real world a lot of the times. With D&D, unless your DM really hates you.
Yeah. Or is Chris.
You're not limited. You're not limited. You can go solve a completely random stranger's problem. You can save your best friend from death.
Yeah.
It's such a powerful game to be able to feel strength, even though it's not real.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you have any sort of tinkering with psychology. It's one of the weird things that I do at 3 a.m. on the internet.
Yeah. I have a minor in psychology. I'm actually quite passionate
Okay,
about
so you
it.
might have heard this too. I cannot cite a study. If I find one, I'll let you know. But one of the things that I heard in psychology is your brain as a machine can't tell the difference between like an imaginative scenario and an actual scenario that's happening. So if you learn in D&D how to be more confident or how to be more empathetic or whatever social aspect you want to learn, your brain doesn't go, oh, that's imaginary, so we want to apply it to the real world. You can learn that skill through D&D and thus make yourself a stronger, more empathetic, more intelligent, whatever it is, person in real life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that crossover application is incredible to me.
Yeah, which is why I wish more kids were playing it. I think if you watch Stranger Things at all, you see how that in the story that they've written, you see how that develops and how it affects their relationships. The idea that we're a party, that we feel loyalty to each other. I mean, bad things can get carried out of the game too, right? That happened to me at the young table with my brothers who were like, oh, you killed my character. In fact, one time I had my brother pinned behind a rock that I was slowly blasting away with a wand of lightning bolts. But that's another stream, Jessie. We're going to get into that.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah, that's another stream.
But it's like, it's so applicable. That's not a word, but we're going to pretend it is.
Yeah. It's applicable. Yeah.
It's so applicable. Thank you. That's right. It's so applicable in so many different areas of life that I think because I kind of feel the same way about video games because a lot of people are like, oh, it's a video game. Yeah. She's wasting her time, whatever. Because there's still that stigma out there.
Yeah.
And it may have been you that I talked to, like when I play Skyrim. In what lifetime am I going to be able to climb a mountain in VR without spending, a buttload of money and traveling to some foreign country? And I really hate travel.
Yeah.
It can give you experiences that may not be one-to-one, but there's definitely cross-reference. And that's powerful. That's a powerful thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. All right, so speaking of D&D and speaking of being able to become anything you want, what is your favorite character class to play, to draw, to think about, to watch in a stream? What's your favorite character class?
Now, I don't have a lot of experience at the table, so I'm gonna jump to video games for this one.
That's fine.
I don't like playing rogues.
Yeah.
It's too much time. I'm not good at being sneaky. Probably if I were the character that I play the most probably in video games is probably somewhere between a barbarian or a ranger. In D&D itself, I don't think rangers get enough love. I think rangers are awesome.
Yeah.
And they need to get more love.
I agree.
Typically I am, please just give me a sword and let me go.
Yeah.
I'll read the backstory later. I will get to it because I find it interesting.
Yeah.
But especially when you're launching into a new game that you're super excited about, and it's like, let me give you 3 hours of family trees and I don't care. Just give me a sword.
Yeah.
So probably the one that I'm closest to is probably a barbarian.
Which is funny because I lean more towards the magic. Always lean more towards the magic. I want to cast spells. If my character can't cast spells, I have a hard time enjoying the character. I have had.
Little sister would get along well.
Who?
You and my little sister, because she loves using magic. And I don't know if it's like the weird brainwashing from magic is bad, but sometimes it's okay. Yeah. But it's like, to me, magic and like rogue abilities feel about the same. They take too much time, and I have to read things, and I just want to shoot things. Or stab things.
I hear you.
Like sometimes with my nephew, it's like, you want to go shoot stuff in paladins? Yeah, okay, let's go.
Yeah, there you go. Although you are going to break out of that when we start our D&D stream.
I know, which I'm super excited because it'll be a good way to stretch my muscles.
Yeah, Jessie's character is not a barbarian in the D&D stream that we're planning. But she does have a really cool backstory that I'm sure is a work in progress. But okay.
But minor spoiler, I'm a sucker for telepaths.
Uh-huh.
And people that have that skill set. Like Charles Xavier is one of my favorite characters.
He's awesome.
So I'm super excited about that.
If you've ever played X-Men Legends, Professor X is one of my favorite characters to play. In X-Men.
Oh, really?
Legends. Yeah, you unlock him, and he's not in his wheelchair, so it's not 100% accurate. But he does. He has mind powers. He can stun people, and he's got this like channeling mind ray that he does that will link through and hit all of the people on the screen. I love playing Professor X.
That's so cool. And bless you, because I basically told Matt because I had no ideas for this character, and I happened to have watched Deadpool 2, and I was like, Matt, I would like to own everything that Cable has on his body. How can we do this? Yeah. And that was the genesis of my character.
Yeah.
Get me weapons, please.
Weapons, please. Weapons, please. Thank you. To go. Yeah. Okay, exactly. Next question then. Let's jump over to the Waffle Crew because now we're an hour in, and this stream primarily is going to be about the Waffle Crew. Even though we're getting to know each other, and our audience is getting to know us. Let's start with some Waffle Crew questions now. What
we can do for reference too is when we upload the video, we can do timestamps of where every question is. So if they don't care about all this jibber jabber and they want to go like straight to the Waffle Crew questions, they totally can.
That's that's something that we should probably do because there are people who are going to think that we're nice.
I ain't got time for this.
Yeah, ain't nobody got time for Ain't nobody got time for Jessie unless she's talking about the Waffle Crew.
I have a life. Let me get to the important bits,
Yeah, exactly. All right, so starting on the Waffle Crew, what's your favorite Waffle Crew ship?
Pairing?
Mine's Paul Tippo, but
yours is what?
Paul Tippo, Paulton and the Hippo. I thought there was something there.
Okay, they were fab.
Yeah,
they were like top notch.
Yeah.
I do like what I kind of consider the two canon ships, which are Dave and Strix and Evelyn and Paulton. I definitely prefer Evelyn and Paulton.
Okay.
Because I'm literally both of those people put together. Like I can be the super sunny, super talkative, as you're now seeing, Evelyn type character, but internally I'm Paulton. That's why, like, when people make commentary about Paulton, I'm like, no. You don't understand. That's the version of me that lives in my brain.
Gotcha.
I totally get it. So yeah, if I had to pick that, like, one ship, that would be my ship.
So when Nate is more reserved and people were like, come on, do something, you totally get where he's coming from.
When they were like, RP, I'm like, stop picking on him.
Yeah.
Not everyone wants to tell you their life story at the table at episode 1.
Yeah.
That's how I feel like I am internally, where I will tell you things when I'm ready to tell you things.
Yeah.
And if I don't want to tell you things, you can pick and prod for months and months and months.
Yeah.
And you won't learn squat because I'm not ready to tell you it.
Yeah. See, and I've talked about that a ton too, about the fact that I feel like everybody keeps pushing Nate to kiss her, including me. I've done it in the chat.
Right.
Because I feel like
he
has...
want the schmoopy Disney moment.
Well,
okay?
I feel like he's blown it so many times when it would have been just perfect for me. It would have been perfect, right? We literally, I think we should do 4 separate streams of each character and then the 2 main pairings, because I could say some things about that where it's like, no, I don't think he's blown it. I think he's smarter than people give him credit for. And I could be wrong. He could be, I don't know. I've watched a lot of videos about Nate. And he's not a slacker. Boy, he's a hard worker. And I just don't think that he actually leaves a whole lot to chance. He's definitely a wild card in the game. And he likes that. Yeah. You know, Anna's commented about that. She said that Nate plays chaotic neutral better than she's seen anybody else play it. Nana's been playing D now for quite a few years now.
Jared has said the same. He's like, he's the best chaotic neutral I've ever seen.
Although I feel like he's backed away and he's more chaotic good now since the Ring of Winter issue.
Like, the amount of development. Sorry, we're rabbit trailing. I don't care.
That's fine.
So between the end of season 3 and the opening of season 4, he had such a huge development because he wanted to plan. he was like, no, let's stop. Let's think about this so nobody has to die.
Yeah.
Because I'm really sick of y'all dying.
Yeah, exactly.
Had about enough.
Yeah.
And no one around him wanted to plan. They all went nuts.
Yeah.
And I'm just going, guys, for once in your life, Paulton is A, contributing.
Yeah.
B, has a good idea. I'm like, I love Evelyn because she knew that mandolin was important and she wanted to get it back for the guy that she cared about. And I'm like, I was yelling at the screen going, Evelyn, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Stop it.
Let him do the noble thing. Yeah, all of the above.
Right? Like, he's finally doing a noble thing.
Yeah.
Not that he hasn't done it before, because he's done it with the Raven Rescue and that.
Yeah.
But, like, he's actively being a participant.
Yeah, but he got thrown in. He got thrown into a lot of those situations. The mandolin thing, he stepped forward, and honestly, I think that was the point that he finally stepped into the front, where he was like, the ring is off, now I'm just going to start contributing right off the bat. And
and then no one was listening. I'm like, you guys.
Let him do it. Let his people go. Yeah.
You've waited 3 seasons for this moment.
Yeah.
And now you're just was like, that's it. Let him go to a bar. Let him get drunk.
Segue.
I'm totally on Paulton.
That's a good segue, though. What has your favorite season of Dice Camera action been so far?
Oh.
And if you don't say Barovia, you're wrong. But go ahead. Like anything.
Barovia was excellent. I feel like we don't know enough about season 4. And I know that season 4 has been expanded.
Yeah.
And it still kind of feels like it's getting off the ground.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like it's fair to lump season 4 in with that.
Yeah.
I definitely think season 3 was the strongest so far.
Mm-hmm. In terms of what? The strongest in terms of the most developed and the most in the groove?
Yeah, I feel like season 3, because like season 1 is completely understandably bumpy.
Yeah.
Because everyone's getting to know each other. I don't remember a whole lot from season 2. Not that it's bad, it just didn't stick in my memory.
Well,
I remember the Giants.
He jumped out of that book so fast. The Storm King's Thunder, he really didn't spend much time there at all. And I have my own thoughts and opinions about that I'll keep to myself about why he didn't.
You should just have an open notepad file of just episode 17.
Yeah, that's another stream. Anyway, so
we're gonna make those. That's gonna be our first T-shirt if we ever sell T-shirts.
That's another stream. Yeah, that's another stream. Let's talk about the Waffle Group, but that's another stream. Okay, so all right. So next question. Well then, what is your favorite moment, or what have your favorite moments in the show been so far?
There's a couple. And we may end up talking about one. The first one that jumps to mind is it's a Strix moment, and this is probably season 3. Correct me if I'm wrong. I sped watched them, and it's been a little while.
Oh, I don't know that I
when
remember.
She stands up to, I think it was her brother.
Yeah.
And he's talking about how we're family. You're a Skizix. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And Strix, who up until that point had been constantly running away. Stops and stands up to him and says, no, this is my family.
Yeah.
That got me right in the heart and like brought me to tears. Because it's so difficult for her to say that. And kind of in tandem when she gave, was it Diaz, the note with his doll that I promised not to run away anymore?
I don't remember.
I think it might have been related to the dolls. Because she gave each of them a promise. And of course, Paulton's was wine, which was hilarious.
Yeah.
Which is still like one of my favorite Nate RP moments.
Yeah.
But I think it was with DS doll. She made the promise that she wouldn't run away anymore. And those two things where she committed to the group, she was grounded in them. She didn't need the Skizix last name. She didn't need all that because they were her family and they were the family that she was choosing.
Yeah.
That was a huge moment. Obviously, if you don't have the ritual scene somewhere in there, your brain is broken because that is and I've told her before, that is some of the most beautiful RP I think Anna's ever done. And I don't know if she'll ever top that, if it could be topped.
Yeah.
That whole arc of the ritual was amazing.
Yeah.
It was so good. And then it's funny, I don't have one for DF yet, but one of the big ones that really got me.
Poor DF. Poor DF.
No, it's just, I think it's because he's been through so much. For Paulton was when he they killed Simon the first time.
Yeah.
And Paulton / Nate as RP just like went boom.
Yeah.
On the screen, and everyone's like, oh, this isn't just a joke. He actually cares. Yeah. That was one of the earlier scenes where you realized that whether he wants to admit it or not, Paulton cares.
Yeah.
Probably, God, there's so many things for Diep, like,
yeah.
This, I'm not sure, this has got to be Barovia, because the cards were there. Yeah. When he finds, I may be wrong, so if you remember, correct me. When he finds his own body hanging,
I don't remember.
Or he saw, it was either his body or his shadow, or because no, wait, I'm wrong. So they had walked through the town and they'd seen bodies hanging, and Chris had said specifically to Diep, something like you feel a chill or you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah. And
something feels wrong. And there's graves over here and there's a body hanging over here. And then you didn't learn until the end of that season that those bodies were Paulton and Evelyn, and the one hanging was Diep.
Yeah.
And it was just like, it was silence in the video because everybody was so stunned. Yeah. Because we couldn't believe that Chris had actually pulled it off.
And that's probably one of those moments where Jared is going,
God, not again, not again.
Yeah, on the camera.
How Jared doesn't have imaginary PTSD at this point, I don't know.
Yeah, seriously, if I were Jared sitting down at the table, I'd be popping my Xanax but right before the stream begins or at half an hour and going, okay.
Sending Chris my therapy bill.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's the bill for this month. Have fun.
Yeah, the one that hit me the biggest was when Holly made up that prayer for Evelyn when she died. I'll flat out tell you, Jess, I cried. I did.
Yes.
I cried while I was watching it. I think that one I was watching live. And I sat there and I cried and I teared up. I remember I was sitting in my bed and she started and I was like, no, that's not what happened. But she'd written the prayer out and it was, prayer. And the way Holly said it too, Holly, nobody does grief like Holly does. The girl has experience with it, right? She lives it.
That's her bread and butter for Strix.
Yeah, sure. That's her bread and butter, period. And she knows it, and it came out, and it was such good acting. And there's Anna in the background crying too, and that was right after Anna had sung her song on the internet, which also moved me so much that I sang on the Waffle Press my own lame response to it, but I couldn't help it. It touched me so deeply.
Yeah, and so, just as a sidebar, I don't know how they did that because there's not enough money in the world to make me sing on the internet. Yeah. So my deepest kudos to them for that.
Yeah. Well, I've been on the stage for a long time. I love music and I love singing. That's a big niche for me. So I'm actually gonna have to make you do that for most of the stream. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. We're not gonna do that. Maybe. No. No, we won't do that.
I think it was either the ritual episode or it was the episode before that. That was the first show I ever watched live.
Yeah.
Well, so talk about an introduction,
it felt like she was dead. I mean, she was crushed. You can't heal. She was in cogs and wires and bolts. You can't heal that. It's
yeah.
So it felt a lot more final. And then the question of, can you resurrect a construct the same way as a living creature and all of that?
I think you and I have gone back and forth in comments where, can you resurrect her and still make her sacrifice satisfying?
Yes, that was I talked a lot about that. And not just completely
pee all over her sacrifice. Because this is one of the reasons I don't particularly read comics. Mm-hmm. Because same thing with soap operas.
Yeah. No
death is ever final. Mm-hmm. So after a while, having had experience with real death as a small kid,
yeah,
I don't like it when it's a plot device. Yeah. Now I have to say, considering the number of times these people have died, it's been really masterfully done because, I remember when I watched the episode where Evelyn died in the ritual.
Yeah.
Basically, that whole week between episodes, it was like you had to grieve Evelyn.
Yeah.
Because you didn't know if she was going to be back next week. You didn't know if Anna was just going to roll new character. Because I'm going, they can't kill her. She's too integral. She's not an NPC. She's not a side character. She is a main core. She's literally their only light in Barovia.
Yes.
Kill her. But you still didn't know for sure what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And so it was like you had to actually grieve her in that week.
Yeah.
Until you knew what was going to happen.
Yeah, and I felt very much largely the same way. Everything that you just said and then some. Okay, so that brings us to the question: if you had to pick, who's your favorite character in Dice Camera Action and why?
Fulton.
It's Paulton. And is that because you identify with him more, or because you love Nate?
Slightly, yes. It's slightly because I think I identify with some of his thought processes.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he's the one with the most potential for change.
Uh-huh.
Evelyn, unless we go into a warped reality, which we kind of have a little bit, Evelyn is always going to be good.
Yeah.
She's always going to be, the champion of doing the right thing.
Yeah.
DF is always going to be Team Dad, poor man.
But her changes are subtle.
What?
Her changes are more subtle, though. And Nate's a dynamic character. He's not static. He's going to violently change if all goes well, right?
Exactly. And it's like, I hope I'm not offending you by using this phrase, but I think for the ship of Evelyn and Paulton to like fully, completely sail, if he hasn't done it already with the multiple Evelyn deaths, he, at some point there's going to be like, this is a nicer way of saying the other version I was going to use, but he's going to have a come to Jesus moment, where it's either you tell her you care about her or you cut her off.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got to come. You can only string this out so far. And I think they're doing that on purpose, too. Because the moment the romance is culminated, the tension leaves, right?
See, now I strongly disagree with that theory because...
Oh, good.
Because, like, on TV shows, there was like, oh, you can have them get together or the show will die. Not if you actually took the time to lay it out and do it properly. Yeah. If you're just doing it for, like, plot, and you're not actually planning in advance what they're going to be as a couple, then it's going to fall apart because you've built everything on this will they, won't they. Yeah. And viewers are going to want that resolved one way or the other. Yeah. One of the shows, and it's been a while since I've watched the whole series, one of the shows that I actually think did it really well was Bones.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, it's not perfect, but overall, they did a great job with Angela and Hodgkins. Yeah. They were my shipper of choice right there. Yeah. And Bones and Brennan, or Bones and, oh my
Booth.
God, I lost it. And Booth. Thank you.
No problem.
But, like, all the couples that they had, for the most part, they were really, really strongly executed. Yeah. And I don't know the creators, I don't know for sure, but it felt like they planned ahead. Yeah. And they were like, okay, if we're going to make them a couple, we're going to go, like, all the way to 10. Mm-hmm. We're not going to pussyfoot this. We're going to do it for real. Yeah. And I think if you're willing to make them a couple and you're willing to put that groundwork in, you can create something really dynamic. Yeah. If you're not, if you're just playing with, we're going to tease, and not do anything about it, then you're going to fall on your face.
Yeah. Well, that brings us...
personally think...
Go ahead.
No, you go. I was talking it up.
Well, that brings us to another question that I feel like is really important. If you could go back through Dice Camera Action and change anything that happened, what would you change? And let me lead by telling you, when Evelyn was resurrected by Omendron, and then she's left alone with Paulton, I thought that was the moment that it needed to happen. That was the moment. If you can watch a woman you love come back to life when you didn't really even know if that was possible, D&D or no, and not have that breakdown moment, then nothing is going to get to you. I feel like it was a moment missed. That, for me, would have been the perfect moment. And then I felt like they could have built on top of that, like all kinds of funny RP, like, honey, you don't have to battle axe everything,
And I don't know if it was fully Nate or a combination of Nate and Chris, where they made the comment of he's asleep in the plant. I secretly, shipperly believe that he wasn't asleep. That's just my own little shipper headcanon. There's no actual canon to verify this whatsoever. But yeah, it was like, really? Can we just get a wink and a nod to know that he's awake? Yeah. Because otherwise, why was he in the room?
Yeah. Well, I mean, but that was my moment. Is there anything that you would change? Like any moment throughout the entire series?
I was get to that. Don't worry.
Yeah. Okay.
My moment would have actually been in the Waffle 100. Because, and this is a pet peeve of mine.
Yes.
The whole Strix has to be adopted. That drove me nuts. Not that the Waffle 100 wasn't a blast. I do kind of think, as a sidebar, I feel like the poor C team got shafted.
A little bit,
and they weren't given enough to do. Which, I mean, on the one hand, it's the Waffle 100, but still, like, be a gracious guest. Give them more to do.
Yeah.
But I personally was really, really disappointed with the whole Strix has to become a bee stinger. Because, as I mentioned earlier, that moment of her choosing her family and choosing who her family was going to be was so powerful for me as a viewer that I feel like the whole adoption thing undercut it. And I was literally waiting for Evelyn to step up and take Strix's hand and go, she has a family.
Yes.
We are her family. Or for Strix to say it, or for them to say it together.
Yeah.
You have a family. You have people that love you as you are, covered in rags, probably a little smelly. You know, you're in need of a little medication. But they still love you. And you love every bit of you, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I was so frustrated as a viewer. It felt like it pulled, for that moment of development for Strix, it felt like it completely pulled the rug out from under it.
Yeah. Now, contractually speaking, with Asmodeus, I loved the idea of the loophole, and I love Rosie Beestinger as an idea. I don't necessarily love how Kate executes the character all the time, but I love the idea of a grandmother monk who's raised a lot of children and who's taken a lot of people under her wing. So the idea that they found a loophole, because Asmodeus being a devil god is all about the contract and loopholes, right? His power as a god and his power as the king of hell technically comes from a loophole in the Pact Primeval, which that's another stream. But anyway.
You said it like 35 times.
Yeah, that's okay.
There's going to be a counter in the bottom of the screen of how many times you said that phrase. I think, and it's been a little while since I've watched the Waffle 100, so I may have to go back and rewatch it. I feel like I would have been more satisfied with that particular plot if I felt like that's what the whole, because I loved the way that they were split up, because the couples were split up together and then mixed with the C team. I feel like the Jared, Holly, Kate, and Chris episodes should have been more geared towards building that relationship between Strix and Rosie. For me, for that to pay off the way that it did.
Agreed.
Otherwise, without it, I was just like, but she has a family.
Well, and what a great opportunity.
She's had a family for 50 years.
What if they had created their own surname, too? Their own last name as a party, you know?
It would be a monster of a last name, but I mean, it would work.
Well, I mean, what they could name, what could we name them? Like Barovia? Barovanian? I don't know, something.
There you go.
Yeah, something sufficiently dark like Depressiona or something. I don't know.
There you go. What is it that's in the meme where it's like, oh my God, what is it? The Amazon thing where it's like blah, blah, blah happened. Amazon play this particular song. I'll have to find it. I can't remember what it is.
We'll find it. We'll show it next time.
It just felt like it undercut her relationship to them, and it undercut so much of her character growth in season 3. Because, and again, this is not against necessarily Kate Welsh or the character of Rosie. She was just kind of right place, right time. Not necessarily her fault. It just, I don't know. It felt like it took away some of the gravitas of Strix's character arc so far. To just have a second party come in and be like, okay, I'll adapt you. Let's sign the paperwork. And I will fully admit I have personal bias with this because I have an adopted sister and family is like a big deal for me. And to me, family isn't like puzzle pieces. It's not something you do on a whim. There's serious connotations to it. And this is probably me putting on my nerd hat and taking a game way too seriously, which we're probably in like hour 2, so we're way beyond that mark.
That's okay. Take it home, sister.
But it just felt like it took away from so much of her growth that I was just like, really? Because I was like mentally begging Anna. Because like I knew it couldn't be Dia. Because there's a romantic angle there, and that would be weird. I was like championing Nate or Anna to be like, please say something. Please stand up for her and claim her as your own.
Why couldn't she be a Marthane? I mean, I agree. Okay, so let's move on to our next question. As we kind of wrap up this part of it, why did you want to do the Waffle Press with me? What made you want to? What made you? I mean, obviously, I was excited for you to do it, but what made you say yes, and what made you want to do it?
Well, it kind of goes back to the whole conservative voices thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was, you'll go on my Twitter feed and go, she's quiet about her politics? Really? Okay. Which, if you do, I 100% don't blame you, because I do occasionally retweet stuff and I get angry.
Uh-huh.
But in the gaming community as a whole, not just D&D, in video games, in D&D, and things like that, even in literature, it doesn't feel like there's a whole lot of conservative voices.
Uh-huh.
And if it is, it's typically the kind that you would find in your Christian bookstore.
Yeah.
And it's all like PG-13,
Yeah.
and everything's hunky-dory, and like your biggest choice is, Lord, who do I marry?
Yeah.
Some Christian version of like a Jane Austen novel.
Yes.
There's not a whole lot of variety, it feels like, in the conservative viewpoint of the gaming world.
Yeah.
And we started talking just kind of on a whim. I don't even know how we got started talking. I'll have to go back and check my Twitter. And it was like, it felt like we had just enough in common, but enough to also have different viewpoints to where it wouldn't necessarily be us just agreeing in tandem for 3 hours straight.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was like, oh, this is someone that shares my ideas, that isn't like, let's go all super crazy on the end of the spectrum here and be nutcases about it. But someone that can thoughtfully apply a conservative and faithful viewpoint to a community that doesn't really have a voice for that right now.
Yeah.
Or if it does have it, they tend to be under the rug or have to be quiet about it, which really sucks, because as long as you're being respectful to everyone at the table, so to speak, and table being the metaphor for the internet, there's nothing wrong with having conservative viewpoints. Yeah. Having different viewpoints is what makes the world go round,
Well, and how many times have we disagreed here? I mean, just in this one stream, and I feel like...
And trust me, when we get to the Paulson breakdown, there's going to be even more.
There's room for more disagreement, and it's coming, No, and that's what I think, is going to make us unique.
Thoughtful disagreement, and not just like... Because my thing is if you can't back up your viewpoint, like, just speaking purely Waffle Crew, if I can't go, okay, this is why I think this, and it was in episode 17 of season 2, and Nate made this little offhand comment that no one listened to, like, obviously we don't want to be crazy about it, but if it's just, this is my opinion and that's how I feel, to me that's not compelling. Compelling is some of the things that you've already done, where you go in and you break down the characters and you look at their motivations from different angles. And I think it's a kind of a lesson in empathy. Yeah. Because you learn to think like someone else, and kind of to feed back into the whole internet thing. I feel like in certain ways, social media is devoid of empathy. Yeah. Because it's very black and white. It's very cut and dry. Either you're on my side or you're not.
Well, and I feel like that's the problem in our country right now. Everyone keeps using the word on TV, polarized, right? We're polarized, we're tribal now. It's like I'm in my camp and I won't listen to anybody else in another camp. And I think, hopefully as we go on to do this, and, hopefully in our 30th episode, if we're lucky enough to keep going that long, which I think we will be, people will see that we don't agree on everything and we're okay with not agreeing with each other. That's all right. There's nothing wrong with that. We don't have to block people on Twitter because we're so threatened that our viewpoint was threatened. Even if it's a sacred viewpoint, and that's the funny thing. It seems like it's so okay to trample beliefs that are sacred and religious, but if they're identity beliefs, now that's not tolerable for some reason. So I'm like, that's a ridiculous double standard to me. So hopefully we'll set a good example.
And I'm not a fan of identity politics. Yeah. And in certain ways, I slot perfectly into certain, like, yes, I'm a white person. Like, we can break it all down.
You are?
And I can tell you mine. Like, I am. Did you notice?
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Like, I can break it all down and give you my 23andMe spreadsheet that says I'm primarily English, Irish, and Scandinavian.
Well, you didn't tell me that before we started, okay?
I know. I know. Problems.
Yeah.
But, like, in certain ways, I should fit in perfectly to kind of the diversity campaign that's going on. Yeah. I'm a woman. That's something that's being hugely championed right now.
Yes,
and, while not the same faith as yours, I'm a person of faith. Yeah. So why do I feel so unwelcome at the table?
Yeah. Satine Phoenix talks about that all the time. Yeah.
because I happen to be on the more conservative side of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And I'm not even like, and I don't want to say this because it sounds like it's making excuses, but excuse me, I have a cough.
That's no problem. Yeah, no, I know what you mean. It's like we're not going to find you at a Trump rally with a flag, like screaming, "Build that wall." I mean, I understand.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not like I'm like far on the extreme end of either end of it, because there are extremes at both ends.
Yeah.
As much as some people might like to say there's only one extreme,
Yeah.
there's two ends of that spectrum, and neither one of them is good. I'm like right of center.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, I have a lot of moderate ideas, and yet it still feels like, even being a moderate, that doesn't slot into the type of community that they're attempting to cultivate.
Yeah.
And so they just don't cultivate it.
Yeah. Well, and hopefully we can, what is that Evelyn says, be the light, you know? Hopefully
yes,
we
be
can.
the light of Lathander.
Yeah, hopefully we can be the light of Lathander and make it so that people understand that there is a place for everybody at this table in the D&D community.
Yeah.
And if there's not, then we're darn well going to try to create a place for them to feel
Then
welcome.
we should make you a spot. Exactly.
Yeah, I feel very much like that too. So, okay, let's jump in and just finish up, because we only have like about 5-10 more minutes here, maybe. And that's we're already pushing it, but that's okay because this is our first episode. I want to talk to you a little bit about the plot device that's going on right now in the current part of Dice Camera Action with Lathander and the church and Zeres, who said in the afterlife,
nervous.
yeah, that there was a problem in Evelyn's home order. Now, for the viewers and for Jessie, because I know I've got a lot more D&D, so I've been playing a lot longer. I'm going to tell you a little bit of background about Amaunator, and then I have a question for you, Jessie, because I want to know where you think this is going. Give you a little bit of background, Amaunator, I know Chris calls him Amaunator, and maybe that's what he is, but in my mind, he's Amaunator. I also say Sigil. Anyway, that being the case, Amaunator I first read about in 2nd edition Dungeons and Dragons. Now, I bought this boxed set called the Empire of Netheril, which is like the ancient empire of magic in the Forgotten Realms, right? It's their empire of magic. There have been a few empires like that in the Forgotten Realms. And anyway, so Amaunator is one of those deities, and he died as a result of the stealing of Mystra, the goddess of magic's portfolio. So what happens is this wizard of Netheril casts a spell called, his name is Karsus, and he casts a spell called Karsus's Avatar, and it's the only 12th level spell that's ever been invented. And he uses this spell to suck the power out of the goddess of magic, and he temporarily becomes the god of magic, right?
Okay.
Well, unfortunately, what happens during that time is that the Empire of Netheril was all floating cities. And because he stole her power, the continual magic that kept those cities aloft stopped for an instant, and all those cities came tumbling down, and they were destroyed. Now, a few of them survived through different means. One of them went into the Shadowfell, and that's how they survived, right? So anyway, but what does this have to do with Amaunator? Amaunator, supposedly in 2nd edition, died from lack of worship, because his worshippers in Netheril cities that were floating cried out, "Save us!" And because he had no dominion over magic, he couldn't save them contractually. Now, so he kind of got hosed, right? Because of his nature. Now, Amaunator, as Chris has indicated, he was the god of the sun, but mostly he was the god of the sun in its timekeeping aspect, and in the idea that everything is kept in an orderly manner. And he's also the god of bureaucracy. So he's the god of law, order, bureaucracy, and the sun is a reflection of that, right? Okay. So in 2nd edition, Amaunator dies, and he's one of these ancient powers. And if you want to play in Netheril setting, you're time traveling. There were also rules for time traveling in that box set, right? Okay, so jump ahead to 3rd edition D&D. There's a feat in 3rd edition called Faith of the Fallen. And if you take that feat, you don't have to worship one of the deities who's alive. You can draw your clerical power from the remnant of that deity's power, right? But there's a caveat, because in the Forgotten Realms, if you have the Faith of the Fallen feat, you're essentially damned for worshiping a god that doesn't exist.
Which, by the way, I'd love to hear you try and say that like 10 times fast, but another story.
Which word?
The faith of the fallen feet,
Oh,
like
faith of the
that's
fallen,
on the
faith of the fallen
rats.
feet. Yeah, okay, that's another stream. Anyway, the faith of the fallen feet means that you're damned because it means you're not respecting the gods who are alive, right? These gods
Right,
dead.
according to
He
their
doesn't have an
pantheon.
astral realm for you to go to when you die. So
Right.
yeah. Now let's jump ahead to fourth edition. Fourth edition retconned Amaunator in a really interesting way, and I loved it, and I will tell you why. Fourth edition said, okay, D&D has become too god-heavy. There are more gods than anybody can keep track of in the Forgotten Realms, and there are all these different pantheons, and it's become ridiculous, okay?
Right.
So what they did was start saying that these two gods that are sharing a portfolio of sphere of influence are really the same god, right? They're just
Okay.
masquerading.
Which, I mean, happens in history. There's a lot of overlap.
Exactly. That's Greek and Roman mythology, right?
Celtic, yeah, the whole nine yards.
Exactly. And so what they said was, okay, in fourth edition, it was finally revealed that Amaunator died and was reborn as Lathander. Lathander is the youthful form of Amaunator.
So he really is Jesus. Sorry, I had to make
exactly. So he's been reborn. Hallelujah. Okay. So praise Medea. Anyway, so yeah, it's but that's what for, and I loved that. I loved that idea. Now you actually in the Forgotten Realms novels have characters who are priests of Amaunator. They're called Sun Lords and Sun Ladies. And in Forgotten Realms, all the way through third edition, if you were a Sun Lord or a Sun Lady, you were a heretic to the Church of Lathander. So
really,
yeah. So it's
even
almost,
though it's essentially the same being.
yeah, but nobody knew
Like
that.
I'm thinking of it from a Trinity perspective of
Yes.
Father, Son, Holy Spirit,
Yeah.
but that doesn't fly.
Yeah, apparently it doesn't fly in the church, right? So they're angry at the Sun Lords and the Sun Ladies. I loved that idea. So Amaunator comes back, and the statement was that Lathander has reached the zenith of his power again, and he is now Amaunator. I loved that. I loved Amaunator, but here's the problem. The players were really irritated because there were all these people who were way attached to Lathander. They were attached to his name, the image of his church, and everything having to do.
Yeah.
It's a huge part of the Forgotten Realms, right? And Amaunator and Lathander also show up in the Forgotten Realms games like Baldur's Gate, Neverwinter Nights. Yeah, in Baldur's Gate, if you play it, Holly's talked about this. If you play it in Baldur's Gate, you can actually meet a dying avatar of Amaunator in that game, right?
Oh, wow.
So that kind of confirmed. But anyway, so 5th edition, I wonder where Chris is going with this. Because 5th edition brought back Lathander because everyone was pissed, right? They were like, we don't want Amaunator. He's not the one we got attached to when we were growing up with the
And
gods.
it's so weird the things we get attached to, because it's like, on the other hand, it's weird, but on the other hand, you've been attached to some weird things. You've totally empathized.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
So my question, Jess, is now that you know the history of this god and the fact that we changed him back to Lathander in 5th edition, where do you think Chris is going with this?
I don't know. And I kind of want to give Anna/Evelyn a hug, because her whole, with the exception of the wanting a family plot and wanting Paulton to be her helpmeet, which is I think the term she uses, which I love, instead of soulmate, because it's kind of just overplayed.
Yeah.
Most of Evelyn's arc as a character has been due to her faith.
Yeah.
And having her faith challenged and not sure, I've become a construct now. Is this what Lathander wants? And I want something more than just being a paladin.
Yeah.
Is that the right? So if I were Evelyn and I was seeing my statues and my visages and my faith completely destructed, broken into pieces, and something else, whether or not it's older is beside the point, coming in, I would be terrified.
Yeah.
Because
you have a hard time with that.
It's such a struggle. And I know a friend of mine whose name I won't say because I don't have permission to use her name is worried because everyone is falling in love with Evelyn.
Uh-huh.
And it's I know that you and I have talked about it a little bit.
Yeah.
But with the exception of Evelyn loving Paulton, to my recollection, from season 1 to season 3, Evelyn, like, yeah, people were attracted to her because she was cheery and sweet.
Yeah.
But there wasn't all this romanticness.
Yeah.
There wasn't Omen. There wasn't the guy at Chircon. There wasn't, like, virtually every third person that turns their head that is suddenly in love with Evelyn.
Well, yeah, it's like when you and I were talking, I said everybody's gay for the Bard. Like, why does Paulton...
Right, we've now switched from everyone trying to date Paulton to everyone being in love with Evelyn.
Only men want to date Paulton, but now everybody wants Evelyn.
Yeah. Now, I will stand by Scott Kurtz purely because that Binwin line, kind of a spoiler, I guess, of, what did he say? What did he say when he met her? Because it was so cute.
Oh, was it when he was like, "Hi, I'm Evelyn. It's nice to meet you," or something like that?
Yeah, he was like, "Hi." It was something like he was trying to say, "I'm Binwin.
Yeah,
it's nice to meet you," and he said like, "Hi, I'm me. It's nice to Binwin," or something. Yeah. And it was so perfect and well timed that it's like I will give Binwin a pass.
Yeah,
just because he is so like. I feel like as a pairing, they would actually be well matched.
Yeah.
Because he loves breaking stuff. He's all up for like a good time. But like, you know, within limits, I could see them being a really funny pairing. But it seems really, really odd in season 4 that suddenly everyone's in love with Evelyn.
Yes.
And it seems like Evelyn herself as a character doesn't really understand love.
Yeah.
Because like she wants Paulton to love her. And to me, I kind of read Evelyn... Because one of the things that I try to remind everybody when they're critiquing these characters is like, guys, they're babies.
Yeah.
Evelyn is 19. Diep is the eldest at 28. I don't think we have an actual age for Strix.
Yeah.
And Paulton is 25. Like, they're babies.
Yeah.
And
to my knowledge, I was 25, oh my gosh.
Yeah. I knew nothing, right?
Yeah.
I thought I knew everything, and I knew nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
And like, I think Anna has said, I could be wrong, that her adventures with the Waffle Crew are like basically pretty much all of Evelyn's first foray out into the real world.
Yeah. Yeah, because she was at that Paladin Academy forever.
I call it. Yeah. So it's like when people are like, oh, why doesn't she? It's like, guys, she's 19. She's Rapunzel from Tangled.
Yeah.
She's never seen the grass before. Like, you know, cut her some slack here. But I'm really worried, along with my friend, that it's like, why this sudden shift?
Yeah.
In why is everyone in love with Evelyn? Is someone trying to get her attention? Mm-hmm. And along with the whole, it's specifically Evelyn's god that's being basically dismantled via machine.
Yeah.
Those two things together, it's like, I'm real nervous. And then, which doesn't help at all, Chris is like, we're going to add 10 more episodes to this season. And I'm going, I'm nervous. I'm so nervous.
But I see why it's necessary, because I think in order for him to run this adventure, he's got too many pieces on the table right now, you know? Yeah. There's the Xanathar, the Zentarim, the problem with Evelyn's church, and then, I mean, the fact that the Strahd doll was lost. Strahd is always in the background. I'm always waiting for him. Like,
we will never kill Strahd.
You know they're going back to Barovia at some point.
It will be the last episode.
Yeah.
And then he may die, but probably not, because there'll be an epilogue. Like, he will never die. I've just succumbed to the fact that Barovia will never completely go away.
Yeah, Barovia will live forever. You know he's already back on that throne. Or even worse, Chris is going to make them watch the doll turn back into him on the throne. Like, they'll walk right into the castle right as it happens.
I'm super nervous / intrigued. Because, like you said, there's, to use the metaphor, there's so many pieces on the chessboard right now.
Yeah, too many.
And I will say, one of Chris's greatest strengths overall is taking a bunch of pieces that look like different pieces and somehow braiding them together into a cohesive narrative. Because, like, I don't claim to be, like, a guru of writing, but one of the things that I've learned is, for the most part, when you're telling a plot, you want to work it like a braid. You always want to have an A, a B, and a C story.
Yeah.
And he's definitely got that going. So I'm like, how is this all going to braid together?
I'm sure he knows.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, please. This is like, he probably eats this for breakfast,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Plotties, his favorite cereal of whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I'm sure he does. But the thing is, they make choices, and Chris has talked about this a lot in interviews. They make choices that totally derail where he plans on taking the campaign. So I'm curious where he's going with this church thing. Is he treating Amaunator now as a heretic? Like, we're going back to second edition, or second and third, where Amaunator is out and it's a heretic, and Lathander's going to be pissed if Evelyn recognizes Amaunator, because that's what I feel like where he's going. And if that's the case, she's going to have to confront this Father Sunbright character, and and if we found out that perhaps he was also thinking about maybe Shar also as part of this trinity, like Amaunator, Lathander, Shar.
Be really interesting.
Well, it called the Risen Sun heresy.
What if Evelyn and Shar are directly, like, again, I'm thinking of the Trinity metaphor like you are. What if Shar and Evelyn are directly opposed? And they're supposed to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and she knows, I mean, we've all been saying it on Twitter. I miss Evelyn of Shar. I wanted to see more of her. She
weirded me out.
She weirded you out? Well, she's a creeper. I mean, they're all creepers. Like, that's the point of the awful
But the whole, like, alt Death and alt Evelyn I was like, I was not ready for that.
Yeah.
I was not prepared.
I love it.
I am not, like, don't get me wrong, they played it up to the hilt. It was amazing.
Yeah.
But, like, the shipper in me was like, I needed a warning on that.
Yeah, I need a warning. Yeah, I just loved it. I mean, I wanted to see more of it. In fact, I have to be honest, Jess, I wanted to see an entire season of the Awful Crew building up to challenge the Waffle Crew. I wanted to see way more.
I'm not as big a fan of the Awful Crew as a lot of other people are. However, I don't think we're done with them.
No, I don't think so either.
If I'm remembering correctly, Alternative Paulton is not dead.
No, I don't think he is.
He's still on the loose.
Yeah.
So I don't. Well, and like now we have the Ego Crew, which is adorable. Which, here's my thing. They're adorable.
Debatable.
But unless they're tied to another plot, they may have run their course for right now.
Yeah.
Because, again, friend I can't name, and I have been discussing this, where, like, the other Paulton's got to come back.
Yeah.
I can't believe that that's just going to be a thread that dies.
Yeah.
I also think that, spoiler, sorry guys, the whole plot with Simon and the kid in the box, there is something up with that little kid.
Yeah.
And between that little kid and the Ego Crew, I don't trust that everything as it appears to be, whether it's just that Chris has made me deeply paranoid at this point.
Of everything? Yeah.
Of everything?
Yeah.
Which is probably possible.
Yeah, I know how you feel.
There's something going on with the kids in Waterdeep that I don't feel like we have all the puzzle pieces yet.
I agree. I feel like he brought them in deliberately for a bigger reason than we know. Like, they're a bigger part of the story that we don't understand yet. If
the mere reason is just to prove that Evelyn can't have a family, I will be furious.
No, I think they're connected somehow in a way that we don't understand to the plot. Because otherwise, why the freak would you just bring in random children? Like, we're tired of playing our characters. Can we play kids? What?
Yeah. Like, don't get me wrong. I love you, Waffle Crew.
Yes.
But this is like, did you ever see the 80s movies?
Yeah.
Or movie, Adventure in Babysitting?
I own it.
With Elizabeth.
My wife loves
best
it.
Movie ever. Love it. But it is literally Adventures in Babysitting with knives.
Yes. With knives and a short bow. Yeah, and Squidly is a horrible child.
So great.
I want to take Squidly over my knee. Like, as a parent.
Oh my God.
As a parent, I'm telling you right now.
Oh.
Yeah.
I felt so bad for Nate in his last episode because you could see on his face, he even said it, someone please stop this child.
Stop Squidly, I can't help myself. Yeah.
It's like, oh, Nate, you poor man.
Yeah. I loved what Holly came up with for Jenks and the fact that I can't even mimic the voice she was doing. Like, I loved that.
It's so derpy and so sweet.
Yeah, I thought Holly roleplayed that so well. She created yet another character that we're captivated by.
Exactly.
Which, I mean, way to go, Holly. Good work. Okay, so we need to kind of wrap up here because we're we're almost 2 hours in, which is fine.
We're gonna try.
Yeah, that's another stream. That's so.
This just continues for another 8 hours.
Yeah, and well, now I've got enough notes here that we could have 60 more streams on this. So let's finish up by talking about Binwin. You love Binwin, and I have not fallen in love with him.
And that's okay.
How do you feel?
Like, everyone loves Fiari, and I could literally throw him into the fire at any time.
Yeah, see, and Binwin for me is like, oh, look, it's a drunken, rowdy dwarf. We've never seen that before. So I'm less attached than everybody else is. And
I will say this. You are more steeped in fantasy stuff than I am. So you've seen all of this. Yeah. So for me, it's definitely fresher than for someone like you that's been reading, like typical fantasy since you were in the womb.
Yeah.
The closest I get to fantasy literature is, and if I had to name a second favorite book, it would be the Outlander series by Diana. I can't pronounce her last name, but Sam Sykes' mom.
Gotcha.
And she's amazing. So I'm not as buried in those tropes as you probably are.
Well, or buried under those tropes, or,
Exactly.
Then how do you feel about the way Binwin went out? I mean, the Beholder, boom, you're disintegrated. Like, how do you feel about that?
I don't know all of it yet because I haven't finished the episode, but I do know enough, and I'm not worried about spoilers.
Yeah.
Well, now that I know it's a Beholder, it's kind of hilarious.
Uh-huh.
Because there was that whole episode of AI that was all about them driving the Beholder.
Yeah.
So, like, on that end, I'm chuckling. On one end, I'm super sad because I love Ben.
Yeah.
I also don't fully think he's dead.
Mm-hmm.
Someone mentioned in the comments this would be a great way to segue Scott back into AI. And if he's up to it, I know he's going through a lot of personal family stuff that he's got to deal with. If you have the time to do it, as a fan of Binwin, I would love to see Binwin back. And I will say part of the reason that I love Binwin is because obviously I hate elves.
Yeah.
So it starts there. But he also kind of reminds me, if you've played Dragon Age Inquisition, I feel like there's a bit of Varric in him.
And who doesn't love Varric, right?
Right?
Yeah.
He literally makes that game, but that's another stream.
Yeah. Oh, he's so well written. Varric is so captivating. Yeah. I'm
literally angry that they will not let me romance the dwarf.
Yeah, seriously. Well, I mean, I'm not angry about that, but I do find his character so incredibly compelling, and his banter with Isabella is hilarious in that game.
And like the whole little, I don't want to give it away for anyone that's played the game, but there's a little tiny subplot with Varric and Cassandra.
Yeah.
Have you done it?
Oh, of course I've done it. Yeah. I've played Dragon Age Inquisition like 3 times. Of course I've done it. I loved it.
I love it so much.
Yeah.
So it's definitely like a combination of I find Scott funny a lot of times because he doesn't seem to me like someone, there are certain times where he'll be like, okay, we crossed the line there. We should back up. But he's just, one of the things that I loved about the early AI games when it was just the 3 of them or when Will Wheaton was on, their main goal is to always make each other laugh.
Yeah.
And he would constantly get Mike Krahulik, and I just love watching them banter and be goofballs together.
Yeah.
So that and Varric is a lot of where my Binwin love comes from.
Good. Well, and that's okay. And I don't know. I have multiple reasons why I'm not in love with them.
I could throw Fiari into a fire at any given moment.
Yeah.
So I understand like loving a character and then going, no, I have no use for that one whatsoever.
Yeah. Which is kind of how I feel about Binwin. I didn't enjoy Scott on Acquisitions Incorporated. I liked Mike Krahulik. I thought Jim Darkmagic was hilarious. Doves, all of that.
Doves everywhere.
Yeah, doves, all of that ridiculous. I thought Viari was okay. I liked Omen. What I loved about watching Jerry play Acquisitions Incorporated was Jerry was so into the story that Chris was telling. He was totally invested.
A lot of times Jerry Holkins is my spirit animal, so yeah.
Yeah, I know how you feel. I know how you feel. I feel like Jared's my spirit animal, Jared Knabenbauer. I call him the Knabenator. So I feel, in some ways, I feel like Jared's my spirit animal. Right. I would not claim...
It's just a funny little sidebar. In my game, we were doing something, and my character, Cassandra, she's very quiet and no nonsense. And I literally said, she's pulling an Omen. And literally everyone in the room got it.
Yeah. Yep.
I was like, she's Omen with boobs. I'm sorry, what more did you want?
And that's how you know you're in a beautiful world and that you belong in the community, right? Yeah. Well, I love
Omen. I have a huge soft spot for him.
I think we've kind of exhausted ourselves for the night. I mean, we could obviously go on for another hour, but we're going to have to cut our stream short here. I hope that you have all enjoyed getting to know Jessie and getting to know me a little better. Obviously, she's awesome, and we're gonna have
so much
conversations. Fun. Yeah, it is fun.
I was super nervous about being on camera, and then like 10 minutes in, I kind of forgot it was there.
Yeah, well, and you get started, you get nervous about it. You're just talking D&D, and then you don't care. Yeah. And I think you'd probably be the same way on a stage, right? And you were like, what are people going to say? There are two gingers on the camera. I mean, whoa, that's not, lots of places to go there. But we had a great time talking to you, and we will meet you again. We'll probably be broadcasting again on Thursday after the next episode. And until we meet you again, this is Jessie and Matt signing off, saying there are more of us than there are of them now. Have a good night, everybody. Bye-bye.